My name is Shu Ruwei, daughter of the Grand Tutor, once the pride of the capital. 7 years have passed since I wed into the Northern Prince's manor, yet my husband has never once crossed the threshold of my chambers. It all began at the mid-autumn banquet, where I saved the young Princess Hengyang from tumbling into the pond. The Empress Dowager, delighted by what she perceived as my gentle nature and virtuous character, issued an imperial decree betrothing me to Lord Ni Hanshan, the renowned prince of the north. I nearly fainted from shock, my face draining of color as I hastily knelt before her. Your Majesty, this humble servant lacks both talent and virtue, and is wholly unworthy of His Highness. I beseech you to reconsider this decree. Everyone in the capital knew of the woman residing in the prince's manor, a girl he had rescued from the battlefield, the keeper of his heart. He had publicly declared he would never take another wife or concubine, vowing to spend his life with her alone. To marry into such circumstances would be... I stole a glance at him and saw his expression dark as storm clouds, his face a mask of displeasure. My parents lost sleep for half a month after the announcement. Father submitted petition after petition to the emperor, all of which were promptly rejected. The prince himself, whom I expected to seek an annulment, remained ominously silent. On our wedding day, as we performed the ceremonial bows, a maid burst through the doors, stumbling and falling to the ground in her haste. Your Highness! Your Highness! You must come quickly! Miss Liu! Miss Liu has suffered a heart attack and is near death. Prince Ni's face transformed with alarm. Without hesitation, he cast aside the red silk cord that bound us, striding away under the shocked gazes of our guests, leaving me abandoned at my own wedding ceremony. Through the gauze of my bridal veil, I watched his scarlet wedding robes disappear into the distance, the silk cord in my hands growing cold as ice. With the groom departed, there seemed little point in continuing the ceremony. I lifted the veil from my head. When the assembled guests expected me to storm away in fury, I instead smiled gently and, under their astonished stares, gracefully assumed my role as the prince's wife, attending to our visitors with perfect composure. This marriage was no mere union of two families. It bore the weight of imperial decree and the Empress Dowager's will. Father understood we had no choice but to proceed. The gathered nobles, all shrewd observers of court politics, chose to overlook this awkward interruption rather than risk offending either the prince or the Shu family. They filed into the front courtyard to partake of the wedding feast as if nothing had occurred. Only my elder brother burned with indignation, determined to demand justice for the insult I had suffered. I caught his arm firmly. Brother, please don't. It's quite all right. On your wedding day, he has humiliated you so. He and I were never meant to be a conventional couple bound by mutual affection. I prepared myself for this reality long before today. True marital devotion spanning a lifetime is rare indeed. Respectful cohabitation is also a form of partnership. Besides, his behavior today has not only struck my face, but also that of His Majesty and the Empress Dowager. You need not intervene. They will render their own judgment. My brother ground his teeth in frustration, gazing at me with deep pity. But Wei Wei, you deserve so much better than this. I sighed softly, shaking my head, and said no more. Later, the servants informed me that both father and brother had treated Prince Nai with visible coldness throughout the day, which he bore in silent acknowledgement of his wrongdoing. That evening, he finally entered the bridal chamber. I had instructed the servants to remove all the traditional ceremonies, the sharing of sweet cakes, the wedding wine, the ritual unveiling. Even the auspicious dates, lotus seeds, and peanuts scattered across the marriage bed had been cleared away. Red candles burned high, their flames dancing in the lamplight. Yet all this festive crimson seemed starkly inappropriate beneath his cold countenance. I sat before my dressing table, allowing my personal maid Amber to remove my jewelry and ornaments. Seeing him enter, I turned and inquired, "Your Highness, is Miss Lu recovered?" He seated himself at the table, his expression shadowed and inscrutable in the flickering light, tinged with what might have been guilt. After a long silence, he replied, "Ruer has always been delicate. Today's incident was unintentional. She caught a chill in the courtyard several days ago and has been unwell. The servants, in their concern, acted hastily. I apologize on her behalf for the distress you suffered today. Your Highness speaks too kindly. I would not presume to accept such an apology." I composed my features and met his gaze directly. "Surely we both understand that this marriage exists only by grace of His Majesty and the Empress Dowager's decree, an unavoidable obligation for us both. I am aware your Highness has given his heart to another, and I have no intention of competing with her affections. Since circumstances have brought us to this point, I shall fulfill my duties as principal wife in managing the household. As for other matters, I ask nothing more than to live peacefully within these quarters. I hope your Highness will grant me this small consideration. Since neither of us entered this union willingly, why maintain the pretense of false courtesy? How much more pleasant for both parties to establish clear boundaries from the outset." Such straightforward honesty seemed well suited to Prince Ni's temperament. Indeed, his stern expression softened somewhat. He studied my smiling face in the candlelight for a long moment before responding gravely, "I will ensure you receive the respect due your position. I am grateful for your Highness's consideration." With that exchange concluded, we spoke no further. I gestured for Amber to continue removing my elaborate headdress. Truly, wearing the phoenix crown for an entire day had left my neck aching terribly. Prince Ni, reeking of wine from the celebration, sat briefly before retiring to the rear bathing chamber to cleanse himself. When he emerged, still damp from his bath, I had already dismissed the servants and lay propped against the headboard reading a travel memoir, displaying none of the shy modesty expected of a new bride toward her husband. Prince Ni appeared equally exhausted. After glancing at me several times, he climbed into bed and pulled the brocade coverlet over himself. This magnificent bed, carved with butterfly and flower motifs by master craftsmen, had been commissioned by Mother during my youth as part of my trousseau. The renowned Master Su of Jiangnan had labored a year and a half to complete it. Beyond its exquisite beauty, its most notable feature was its size, spacious enough for two of me with room to spare. Though Prince Ni possessed a large frame, ample space remained for my comfort. Seeing him settled for sleep and noting the late hour, I closed my book and climbed across to extinguish the dragon and phoenix wedding candles. "What are you doing?" he asked in confusion. According to capital customs, wedding candles must burn through the entire night, symbolizing eternal marital harmony and happiness. Such traditions seemed unnecessary for our arrangement. I slowly returned to bed, pulling a separate coverlet over myself and settling at a considerable distance from him. "I cannot sleep with the light," I said simply. Though this was our wedding night, we seemed to have reached an unspoken understanding. I had anticipated that Prince Ni would not touch me. This came as no surprise and actually brought me some relief. Yet, as I stared at the red silk ribbons adorning the bedposts, melancholy crept into my heart despite myself. Young women are prone to romantic fantasies. Marriage represents a second birth for a woman, and I had secretly wondered about my future husband. Would he be tall or short, stout or slender, resolute or scholarly? What manner of temperament would he possess? Would we be like sister and her husband, bickering yet affectionate, or like father and mother, deeply devoted and harmonious in all things? Now I had my answers. My husband excelled in both literary and martial pursuits, yet his heart belonged to another. To compete jealously for the affections of a man who does not love you is perhaps the most foolish endeavor under heaven. The human heart is naturally partial. No matter what you do, he may only find your efforts burdensome. So be it. I would not seek love, only dignity. In the darkness, I closed my eyes and willed myself to sleep, tears sliding silently down my cheeks. Soon violent pounding erupted at the door, accompanied by heated arguments outside. I frowned and called toward the entrance. "Amber, what is happening?" Nanny Zhao from Fragrant Garden has forced her way here, claiming Miss Liu is unwell and demands to see His Highness. Amber's voice rang with anger and urgency. Prince Ni immediately moved to rise. "I should go see to her." As he shifted to leave, I grasped his arm firmly. "I understand your Highness treasures Miss Liu dearly. Where you go hereafter is not my concern, but tonight I beg you to remain here. I too am a daughter of good family, raised with love by devoted parents and brothers. I ask that you grant some face to both myself and the Zhu family." I held his gaze steadily, my grip on his silk-clad arm tightening until I could feel the tension in his muscles beneath the red sleeping robe. Speaking each word with deliberate precision, I continued, "Your Highness just promised to show me proper respect. Allow me to handle this matter while you rest." Without awaiting his response, I rose first from the bed, lit a lamp, and deliberately donned my elaborate golden wedding gown, making certain he observed this pointed reminder of the occasion. Prince Ni ceased his movement and settled back onto the bed. I opened the door to sudden silence. The assembled servants clearly had not expected me to appear instead of the prince. Nanny Zhao, who had been creating such a commotion, seemed struck dumb with surprise. "Madam," they murmured. I surveyed the group before me, letting my gaze linger meaningfully on Nanny Zhao and the young maid she had brought. Before they could speak, I commanded coldly, "Amber, fetch my calling card and request Physician Zhao from the Imperial Medical Bureau to examine Miss Liu. Additionally, have Nanny Zhao and her companions beaten 30 strokes for their nighttime disturbance, then confined to the woodshed until tomorrow." Amber smiled broadly. "Yes, madam." She moved to summon the guards. A well-dressed matron nearby hesitated. "Madam, perhaps shedding blood on such an auspicious day would bring ill fortune." I laughed coldly. "Indeed. You all recognize this as His Highness's and my wedding night. How then did you permit this ill-mannered servant to create such a disturbance outside our chambers?" I was unaware the Northern Prince's manor operated under such peculiar rules. "Be gone." Seeing my anger, everyone sprang into action. As Nanny Zhao was dragged away, she continued crying out, "Your Highness! Your Highness!" Apparently reaching the limit of his patience, Prince Ni's cold voice emerged from within. "Gag her!" At this command, someone immediately silenced her and swiftly removed her from the premises. The following day brought gossip throughout the capital about the events of our wedding. I transformed from the envied daughter of the Grand Tutor into the city's laughingstock, a wife abandoned by her husband on their wedding night. When news reached the palace, His Majesty and the Empress Dowager summoned Prince Ni for a severe reprimand. The Empress Dowager and Empress personally sent their most trusted palace maids, bearing lavish gifts to console me, while simultaneously delivering a pointed warning to Miss Liu. After this incident settled, I brought Amber to visit the lady in question. After all, Miss Liu was so delicate that even a breeze could fell her. Prince Ni's precious treasure must not be mistreated. I smiled sardonically as we approached her quarters. Just outside the door, I observed Miss Liu weeping pitifully in Prince Ni's embrace, seeking comfort. She gazed up at him with tears pooling in her eyes, crystal droplets cascading down her cheeks like scattered pearls, truly a picture of helpless beauty. "Hanshan, you must believe me. I never intended to disrupt your wedding ceremony with the princess. It's this wretched body of mine that fails me. Nanny and little Huan acted only from concern for my welfare." She dissolved into coughing, and Prince Ni instinctively rubbed her back in practiced comfort. Miss Liu's fragile health was no secret in the capital. Rumor held that she had sustained lasting injuries while saving Prince Nia's life on the battlefield. The exact details remained unknown, but this history had earned her his devoted protection. Such a profound bond forged through shared peril. How could any other woman hope to compete? Nor did I wish to try. Amber, following behind me, cleared her throat softly to announce our presence, unable to bear the scene before us. Only then did the pair notice my arrival. Miss Liu raised her head toward me, managing a wan, appeasing smile. "Princess." She attempted to rise from the bed to offer proper greetings, but collapsed back into Prince Ni's arms midway. Observing this display, I felt no inclination to determine whether her weakness was genuine or performed. I responded with warm magnanimity. "Sister, with your poor health, please remain abed and focus on recovery. It's this useless body of mine. Today I should have come to the main courtyard to serve tea to your ladyship, yet here I am troubling you to visit me instead. How improper this is. Yesterday's disturbance that disrupted both your highness and your ladyship's peace was truly inexcusable." Her voice carried practiced self-deprecation. "Sister speaks as if we were strangers. Yesterday's events were the fault of ignorant servants and maids. Please don't distress yourself over their actions, lest you damage your health further. What did the physician say after his examination yesterday?" I maintained my pleasant demeanor, accepting her performance while genuinely curious about her condition. "It's chronic heart pain brought on by my constitution. I cannot bear cold winds or emotional stress. Only through His Highness's care, these many years have I managed to cling to life. Your ladyship need not concern herself. With proper rest, I manage well enough." Her gentle response carried pointed meaning. Unable to bear wind or stress under the prince's protection, was she not clearly warning me against using my position as principal wife to oppress her? By convention, as a concubine, she should present herself daily at the main residence for morning and evening attendance. Yet having declared her delicate condition, should anything befall her, would not the responsibility fall upon me? I smiled faintly, having no desire to see her regardless. Sister's words pain me to hear. Since your health is poor, there's no need for such formalities as morning and evening attendance. Focus entirely on your recovery. My gracious acceptance clearly pleased Prince Ni, and after further conversation, servants arrived bearing steaming medicinal soup. After the maids helped her drink the medicine and settle for rest, Prince Ni and I departed Fragrant Garden together. Halfway along the path, he suddenly remarked, "Rauer's health is fragile. I fear she will require your consideration in the future." I paused, momentarily stunned, then realized his meaning. He wished to transfer responsibility for Miss Liu's care to me. My earlier words had aimed to avoid this exact burden. Taking care of her properly might yield no reward, yet any perceived negligence would certainly earn displeasure. Did he think my graciousness gave him license to make such presumptuous demands? Suppressing my anger, I met his eyes with cool detachment. "Your Highness, what trouble could there be? Before my arrival, the household staff managed her care adequately. The same arrangements for food, clothing, and medicine may simply continue. The steward and senior servants understand far better than I how to tend the sick. I must confess my own health is not robust. If your Highness wishes, you might inquire of my mother when we return for the traditional third-day visit." Mother had already fallen into despair over my marriage to Prince Ni, and yesterday's events had sent her to her sickbed. Though worried, I could only send servants with consoling messages. My mention of this silenced him immediately, recognizing his culpability. I did not mean to suggest, Since you have entered the manor, all household affairs naturally fall under your authority. Rauer's frequent illnesses will inevitably create complications that disturb you, which I regret. As for your honored mother, I will personally apologize when we pay our respects. Yesterday's events were truly inconsiderate of me. There need be no great trouble. Simply ensure the servants provide good care. Rest assured, Your Highness, I am not a jealous or suspicious woman. Whatever treatment Miss Liu received previously, she shall continue to receive. Though my tone carried obvious chill, I maintained proper courtesy. Detecting my displeasure, he studied me intently. I am grateful for your understanding. The rest I entrust to your capable hands. He then placed his hands together at his chest and bowed formally to me. My heart jolted. Here stood the mighty prince of the north, who could stand before the emperor without genuflecting, a military commander whose authority none dared challenge. Yet now he humbled himself before me. I could not decide whether to admire Prince Ni's profound devotion or envy Miss Liu's extraordinary fortune. One thing remained certain: I was this marriage's sole casualty. I must have committed terrible sins in my previous life to deserve such a fate. Struggling to contain my bitterness, I turned away to hide my falling tears while maintaining a steady voice. Your Highness is too kind. The hour grows late, and I have household matters requiring attention. I shall not escort you further. Please go safely. Without awaiting his response, I departed with Amber. Amber supported my arm, gazing at me with concern. Miss... I wiped away the tears and offered her a reassuring smile. Don't worry, I'm quite all right. Though we lack affection between us, Prince Nie has proven himself a reasonable man thus far. Our future days should not prove too difficult. 3 days later, we returned to my family home for the traditional visit. Mother embraced me tearfully, while Prince Nie, true to his word, offered a formal apology. Though my parents harbored resentment, they dared not be overly harsh, knowing my entire future depended upon his favor. The meal passed in subdued but tolerable fashion. Before our departure, Mother drew me aside to inquire whether the prince and I had consummated our marriage. Seeing her hopeful expression, I lacked the heart to disappoint her and adopted a shy manner, nodding affirmatively. Watching Mother's relief and gratitude to heaven, my heart filled with sorrow. As I emerged, I discovered Father speaking with Prince Nie. Wei Wei has been thoroughly spoiled since childhood and can be rather willful by nature. Should she prove troublesome in any way, I pray your Highness will show patience. I thank you in advance for your tolerance. Father bent deeply forward in a respectful bow. Witnessing this scene, my throat constricted and tears streamed down my face as my heart shattered with grief. Who was this man bowing so humbly? My father, the current crown prince's grand tutor. Years ago, when the late emperor stubbornly insisted on passing over his eldest son, Father had led hundreds of officials to kneel before the palace gates in protest. Multiple beatings with the punishment rod had failed to break his proud spine, yet now he bent it for my sake. I covered my mouth to stifle my sobs. Prince Nie appeared equally shocked, quickly stepping aside to lift Father upright. "Honored sir, you must not do this. Please rise." I know your Highness's heart lies elsewhere and do not expect your deep affection. I ask only that you treat Wei Wei kindly. His voice carried a father's pure, devoted love for his daughter. Prince Nie remained silent, his expression touched by some indefinable emotion. Be at ease, honored sir. Since Wei Wei has married me, I will treat her well. Ah. Father smiled. The first genuine smile he had shown all day. I remained hidden nearby, tears flowing freely, requiring considerable time to compose myself before emerging. Father offered final instructions, as if nothing had occurred, then personally escorted us to the gate. Our carriage waited at the main entrance. Prince Nie handed me up, and as we rolled away, I could not resist lifting the curtain for one last glimpse. Father's aged figure stood motionless at the gate, watching our carriage disappear into the distance. I could bear no more. Dropping the curtain, I covered my face and wept uncontrollably, forgetting Prince Ni's presence beside me. He raised his hand as if to comfort me, then let it fall back to his side. My grief transforming to anger, I lifted my tear-stained face and demanded harshly, "If you do not care for me, why did you marry me at all?" Heaven knows how desperately I had hoped during our engagement period that he might take some action to prevent this union. Prince Ni closed his eyes and whispered, "I am sorry." With matters already decided, I had nothing more to say to him. Our carriage arrived at the Northern Prince's manor. Upon entering the courtyard, I saw Miss Liu waiting at the entrance with her maid, little Huan. Seeing Prince Ni and me walking side by side, she immediately approached us, her gaze fixed intently upon Prince Ni. "Han, your Highness, Princess. With your recent recovery, why have you come outside?" Prince Ni stepped forward to support her arm. My mood remained foul, leaving me with no patience for her theatrical displays. "After such a long absence, household matters require my attention. I shall not intrude further." I turned to leave with Amber. "What troubles sister?" Miss Liu's voice carried puzzled innocence behind me. "Nothing serious. The princess is homesick," Prince Ni replied. Life in the manor proved exponentially busier than my days as an unmarried daughter at home. As mistress responsible for household management, I first needed to examine the manor's financial records. Prince Ni had joined the military at 12 and spent 13 years in campaigns, earning the emperor's favor and accumulating vast wealth in gold, silver, property, and estates. Yet little remained in his hands. Nearly everything had been used for compensation to fallen soldiers' families. Additionally, Fragrant Garden housed an expensive dependent whose needs consumed substantial resources. Upon reviewing the manor's accounts, I stared at books that barely balanced monthly expenses, falling into deep contemplation. Whoever wished to manage this household was welcome to the task. The expenditures for Fragrant Garden were particularly outrageous. Monthly medicinal food supplements alone cost over 500 taels, an amount exceeding most middle-class families' entire annual expenses. The garden employed more than 20 maids and servants dedicated solely to Miss Liu's care, not including the cook who prepared special meals exclusively for her. Additional costs for incense, clothing, and jewelry made the total staggering. Only because the Northern Prince's manor housed no other women in its rear quarters, and Prince Ni himself lived simply, could such expenses be sustained. Amber, who had grown up with me and could read and write, gaped upon seeing these figures. How precious is this woman that she spends so much money each month? The steward standing before me wore an embarrassed expression, watching me hopefully. I rubbed my aching temples. From the steward's careful words, I understood that he too disapproved of Miss Liu's extravagance, but dared not speak against her due to the prince's favoritism. "Madam, the double ninth festival approaches, and we must prepare gifts for the other households. Follow previous year's precedent for the gift preparations." I had reviewed the steward's past arrangements and found them appropriate, having no desire to expend effort on such matters. Yet the steward appeared troubled. "What is it?" I sipped my tea. "Madam, there is no money in the accounts." "How can there be no money? I see 3,000 taels of silver listed here." "Income from the shops and estates won't arrive until the month after next. These 3,000 taels must cover the household's expenses for the next 2 months, particularly Fragrant Garden's needs. It may not suffice." "Then where has all the money gone?" Amber could not help asking. "The wedding banquet and dowry required substantial funds." The steward's vague response amused me. Does the steward believe we spent excessively? This servant would not dare suggest such a thing. The accounts simply show no available funds. The steward sighed deeply, clearly distressed. I frowned but felt no inclination to blame him. His report of empty coffers was truthful. This matter could easily be resolved if I contributed my own money. Mother had begun preparing my trousseau from birth, making it already substantial. Learning of my marriage into the prince's manor, she had added even more generous provisions, essentially preparing for my entire lifetime's needs. Yet, the thought of using my dowry to support Miss Liu struck me as deeply unfair. Though I felt reluctant, this represented my first significant responsibility since entering the manor. I could not simply ignore it. After some consideration, I summoned Amber. "Bring me the dowry inventory to examine." "Yes." Amber's eyes curved with a sly smile as she hurried inside. I studied the dowry list carefully. Very well. Since these items came from the manor, let them be used for the manor's benefit. Once exhausted, I would shoulder no further responsibility. When the steward inquired about my decision, I gave no direct answer and simply dismissed him. The following day, I sent Amber with silver to replenish the manor's accounts. Life continued in this manner for 2 years. I gradually adapted to existence in the manor, living peacefully day by day. Perhaps honoring his promise to Miss Liu, Prince Ni never once spent a night in my chambers after our wedding, though he occasionally joined me for meals and conversation. His broad knowledge complemented my scholarly background. If we could ignore our awkward marital relationship, we might even be called kindred spirits, often engaging in spirited discussions. Yet, no matter how enjoyable our conversations, when evening approached, I would tactfully encourage his departure. At such moments, his expression always carried an inexplicable strangeness. I paid no attention, maintaining my calm smile as I watched him leave, and he never lingered. Observing these scenes, Amber sighed repeatedly and urged me, "Miss, why do you persist in this? I've seen His Highness clearly intend to remain in our Hengwu courtyard more than once. Do you truly plan to live as a widow forever? Haven't you heard what people say about you outside?" Her voice carried tears by the end. I fell silent, turning toward the scattered evening clouds and Prince Ni's resolute departing figure. I was well aware of the gossip circulating beyond these walls. At every festival gathering or banquet, my presence drew waves of knowing, pitying glances. The once celebrated daughter of the Grand Tutor had become the Northern Prince's reluctant, decorative wife, a mere household manager. Women's worlds are far narrower than men's, and society shows little mercy to women. Even as the Grand Tutor's daughter, I could not escape the constraints of social hierarchy, yet I remained unwilling to submit. "Miss!" Amber. I called her name, cupping her face gently and wiping away her tears. "I know you care for me, but from the moment he abandoned me publicly on our wedding day, I ceased harboring expectations of him. People must ultimately live for themselves. Let others say what they will. As you can see, haven't we managed quite well without him? But I am worthy of being cherished and deeply loved, not of struggling for scraps of a man's occasional pity. I disdain such degradation." Amber stared at my composed face, pursing her lips, unable to find words. After a moment, she fled to prepare dinner as if escaping. Watching her retreat, I sighed, thinking perhaps I should get a dog to give her something to occupy her mind and prevent such melancholy brooding. Several days later, the estate delivered some plump puppies along with newly weaned kittens. I selected an orange kitten with white paws while letting Amber choose among the dogs. Amber picked up a small white puppy, beaming with joy. I asked what she planned to call it. She smiled broadly. "Miss, how about Prosperity? Though the name seems common, I had a beloved dog named Prosperity as a child." I laughed and agreed. Very well, this plump kitten shall be called Fatty. Both animals are now your responsibility. Wonderful. With the cat and dog providing distractions, Amber became noticeably less prone to nagging. However substantial the dowry, it could not withstand Fragrant Garden's limitless demands. Once they realized I was supplementing the household funds, their requests grew even more elaborate and frequent. I had mentioned this to Prince Ni several times, but since he seemed indifferent, I ceased caring as well. Let them spend. At least, it was not my money. When the steward again appealed for funds due to empty accounts, I did not send Amber with silver this time. Instead, I replied casually, "Since there is no money, the entire household must practice economy." Including Fragrant Garden? Naturally. Aside from Miss Liu's medicine, all other expenses should be reduced where possible. Do you understand? The steward hesitated. But what about His Highness? I shall inform His Highness. The steward need not worry. Upon hearing my words, the steward appeared relieved, his expression brightening considerably. As he departed, his step seemed lighter, as though he anticipated finally taking decisive action. I could tell the steward had long wished to implement such measures, but lacked the authority. Amber sat nearby, playing with prosperity, while I summoned her. Bring me all the account books from these past 2 years, especially the separate ledger for Fragrant Garden. Yes. Amber's eyes sparkled with mischievous delight. When we first created that separate ledger, she had probably been anticipating this very moment. 7 days later, I reclined on the couch in my chambers. A thin snow fox fur blanket draped over me as I dozed. After Miss Liu's latest life-threatening crisis, Prince Ni stormed into my room in a fury, followed by the weeping Nanny Zhao. "You've arrived!" Hearing the door slam open, I lazily sat up and regarded the two intruders. Prince Ni's face was like ice as he demanded, "Ruer has fallen gravely ill. Why have you cut off her garden's supplies?" I glanced at Nanny Zhao's expression of vindictive satisfaction. Over these 2 years, perhaps believing she could manipulate me, Miss Liu had gradually revealed her true nature, becoming increasingly brazen in my presence. Only then did I discover this woman possessed 2 distinct faces. Before Prince Ni, she appeared fragile and helpless, ready to collapse at the slightest breeze. In my presence, she displayed remarkable vitality, hardly resembling someone plagued by chronic illness, and had even begun subtle mockery. What matter if you are the principal wife? You still sleep alone each night. I smiled silently, never reporting these incidents to Prince Ni, eagerly anticipating the day he would discover his beloved's true character. Facing Prince Ni's accusation, I leisurely adjusted the snow fox fur covering my legs and replied languidly, "The accounts show no available silver." "Madam, I beg you to show mercy toward our mistress." Nanny Zhao dropped to her knees dramatically, tears streaming like they cost nothing. "Winter has arrived and the weather grows harsh. Our mistress, already weak, suffers even more in this cold. Without proper supplements, she may not survive the season." I listened to Nanny Zhao's manipulative performance with raised eyebrows, feeling no anger, merely observing her theatrics with calm interest. Prince Ni stared at me coldly. "Will Madam not provide an explanation?" "An explanation certainly exists. Please listen carefully, Your Highness. While over 3,000 taels remain in the accounts, those funds must cover the entire household's winter expenses. As the new year approaches, must not the servants receive winter clothing and meals? What of the gifts for other noble families? You, not managing household affairs, cannot understand the cost of daily necessities. I do not blame your ignorance. But surely enough remains for medicine." Your Highness, please do not rush. Allow me to explain fully. Amber, bring out all the ledgers. I rose to face him directly, as Amber cheerfully retrieved the carefully prepared account books from their chest. I opened Fragrant Garden's ledger with a smile. Since Nanny Zhao's pleas paint me as a cruel mistress who mistreats Miss Lu, let us examine exactly how she has been mistreated. Consider last month's expenses. November 1st, 150 taels for 2 blue and white butterfly porcelain vases. November 3rd, summoned embroiderer Liu from Brocade Workshop for 1 fox fur coat and several silk gowns, totaling 850 taels. November 4th, purchased 5 pounds of premium bird's nest, 150 taels. With each item I read aloud, Nanny Zhao's face grew paler. Finally, growing weary, I handed the ledger directly to Prince Ni. These contain previous records as well. Your Highness may examine them thoroughly. Miss Lu's medicine I have never restricted. I merely wonder what manner of supplies might enable her to survive winter's hardships. New clothing ordered monthly and annually, jewelry shops treating the manor as their most valued customers, not to mention Fragrant Garden's daily requirement of 10 pounds of pork, 5 live chickens, and fresh fish. I am curious how someone of Miss Lu's delicate constitution manages to consume such quantities. I reduced only new garments and jewelry while slightly decreasing food expenses, yet Nanny Zhao storms here weeping accusations. I wonder why. Perhaps Miss Lu cannot survive without these luxuries. Meeting Prince Ni's ashen expression, I continued with a smile. I understand your Highness's devotion to Miss Lu, yet our large household must still function. If you insist on these expenditures, either provide the silver yourself or grant me a divorce decree. Removing me would reduce household expenses considerably. Prince Ni's face was like congealed frost. Without uttering a word, he methodically examined every page of the ledger before reviewing the other account books. Nanny Zhao trembled with fear. Having no desire to witness the aftermath, I departed with Amber. Shortly after, I watched Prince Ni stride away carrying the ledgers, dragging the now paralyzed Nanny Zhao behind him. Go fetch the manor's treasury keys and deliver them to His Highness, I instructed. Ah! Amber exclaimed in surprise. I looked at her meaningfully. If not now, when? Did you expect me to continue subsidizing the manor with my dowry forever? This presents the perfect opportunity to relinquish such burdens. Henceforth, my dowry shall support only our courtyard. Oh, yes, excellent, Amber laughed with understanding. Within days, Prince Ni personally returned the keys to me. I sat at my table sipping clear tea, pushing the keys back across the surface. What does your Highness intend by this? Madam, I have erred in this matter. I have dealt with those responsible in Fragrant Garden. The household still requires your capable management. I took a sip of tea and remained silent, my heart filled with irony. Your so-called dealing with them, what did that involve? Scolding Miss Lu? How amusing. Still, since the silver was not mine. I fear my limited abilities prove inadequate for managing the manor, and I might neglect Miss Lu's needs. Should Miss Lu's health suffer from insufficient supplies, I cannot bear such responsibility. I beg your Highness to reconsider. Madam, Prince Ni appeared helpless. I have thoroughly reorganized Fragrant Garden. Such incidents will not recur to trouble you. I laughed softly. Who was he attempting to deceive with such words? That woman was his precious darling, someone for whom he would pluck stars rather than settle for the moon. When push came to shove, would his heart ever truly favor me? However, I had anticipated Prince Ni's return. I turned to the steward standing nearby. Before I entered the manor, I heard that Miss Lu managed household affairs. Perhaps we should separate Fragrant Garden from the manor entirely, allotting 1/3 of our total resources for Miss Lu's independent management. Since I prove inadequate at care, and Nanny Zhao so deeply loves her mistress, Surely she will manage excellently. What does your highness think? Impossible. What would outsiders say about you? I care nothing for gossip. External rumors hardly lack for material as it is. If your highness truly considers my welfare, agree to this arrangement. My tone remained cold, my gaze avoiding his. Prince Ni fell silent, then murmured heavily, I know I have wronged you. Since you acknowledge wronging me, why persist in these actions? I challenged coldly. When silver runs short, must I continue supplementing from my own funds? Does the Shu family somehow owe debts to the Northern Prince's manor? I believe I have fulfilled my duties as principal wife adequately. This matter brought no honor to anyone. Discussing it publicly would only invite ridicule. I have already reprimanded Miss Liu. She will not indulge in such extravagance again. I will personally reimburse every tael you have contributed. Unnecessary. Simply grant my request. Suddenly, cries and commotion erupted outside our door. It was Miss Liu. The servants, afraid of injuring her, could not prevent her forceful entry. Bursting through the entrance, she collapsed to the ground in tears, prostrating herself deeply. Your Highness, Princess, everything is my fault. Please, for the sake of Nanny Zhao's lifelong service to me, spare her punishment. Prince Ni's expression darkened like storm clouds. I snorted derisively and gestured dismissively. Quickly help Miss Liu to her feet before she catches cold on this frozen ground. And you, attending servants, 30 slaps each for your negligence. How do you serve your mistress, allowing her out without proper winter clothing? If she falls ill, she suffers and His Highness worries. Miss Liu wore only a thin white cotton dress, her hair disheveled, face pale with apparent illness. In the bitter wind howling through the corridors, anyone would shiver violently within moments. My pointed observations exposed her calculated performance. She lifted her head, shooting me a venomous glare that quickly transformed back into piteous pleading as she grasped the servant being dragged away. This is all my fault for acting hastily and forgetting proper attire. Please forgive little Huan. Little Juan's face turned deathly pale with terror. I remained silent, watching Prince Ni instead. Disappointment flickered in Prince Ni's eyes as he commanded coldly, help Miss Liu up and escort her back. Take little Huan away. Miss Liu stared at Prince Ni in disbelief, her voice trembling as she whispered, Your Highness. Prince Ni glanced at her briefly. Move quickly! I waved my hand in dismissal. Miss Liu appeared stunned by this turn of events and was promptly carried away. Once they departed, silence returned to the room. I poured water into a cup and offered it to Prince Ni. Does your Highness still insist on your position? Prince Ni accepted the cup, his eyes filled with desolation. Seeing his expression, I abandoned all pretense and spoke bluntly. Your Highness understands people well and surely comprehends Miss Liu's motivations. A woman's jealousy cannot be reconciled. No matter how we maintain surface harmony, the fundamental opposition between Miss Liu and myself remains unchanged. For Miss Liu's future health, Your Highness should agree to my proposal. I am sorry, Prince Ni said heavily. I turned my head away without response. Too many apologies become nauseating. Subsequently, Fragrant Garden's expenses were completely separated from the manor's budget, with Prince Ni appointing his trusted aide to oversee the arrangement. Without this drain on resources, the manor's expenditures finally returned to reasonable levels. Servants soon reported interesting developments. Deprived of the manor's generous support, Miss Liu had secretly begun operating a silk trading business, leveraging the manor's influence to achieve remarkable success. I paid no attention to such matters, content to remain peacefully within my own quarters.